After the break, the COVID inquiry finally starts and 131 trees cut down illegally in Bromley. Tonight, an emotional start to the COVID inquiry with a minute's silence inside as families of those who died in the pandemic hold a vigil outside.
We just weren't allowed to go and visit him, and that will always haunt me. And yeah, it was just such a horrible way to lose my wonderful dad.
The man accused of killing a police officer inside a custody suite uses a whiteboard to give evidence. Anger after 130 trees are chopped down without permission in Bromley. And
so, young man, how have things been since your cancer diagnosis?
Short back and chats. The plan to use barbershops to get black men talking about their health.
A topic so taboo, a topic so under-discussed, it needed the spotlight.
Good evening. 2 years after it was launched, the inquiry into the COVID pandemic, which cost so many lives and changed the way we all lived and worked, has opened. The lead lawyer to the inquiry said the country was taken by surprise by the significant aspects of the disease. Almost 26,000 Londoners died from the virus. Baroness Hallett, who's chairing proceedings, intends to answer 3 key questions. Was the UK properly prepared for the pandemic? Was the response appropriate? And can lessons be learned for the future? And outside the public hearing in central London, relatives of those who lost loved ones gathered for a vigil. Rags Martel was there.
Wally Hayes.
They say their names.
Samuel Patterson.
And hold their photos.
Tony Moore.
So my dad was a London bus driver and he caught COVID in April 2020. His bus route started at Ealing Hospital, so he was, carrying patients and healthcare workers. He didn't have any PPE to do his job safely. It was incredibly unsafe, the conditions he was working in, and I'm here to learn what was their level of preparedness.
As the COVID inquiry began, bereaved families lined the entrance, each with their own story of grief and loss. Becky Kuma was stopped from seeing her father as he died alone in hospital.
I had one goodbye phone call with him in 6 days while he was dying in the hospital, and even though the hospital's in London, I live in London, we just weren't allowed to go and visit him. I said goodbye down a nurse's telephone. He didn't even have his phone with him in hospital, and we weren't allowed to take anything from home to the hospital. That will always haunt me, and yeah, it was just such a horrible way to lose my wonderful dad.
Walking past the silent protest, the inquiry chair, Lady Heather Hallett, who opened the hearing, trying to reassure families she was listening to their concerns.
It is on their behalf and on behalf of the millions who suffered and continue to suffer in different ways as a result of the pandemic that I intend to answer the following 3 questions. Was the UK properly prepared for a pandemic? Was the response to it appropriate? And can we learn lessons for the future?
I'm angry. I need questions answered.
Starting proceedings, a 17-minute film featuring relatives. But COVID affected everyone, either through bereavement, loss of employment, or the wider effects of lockdowns, whose costs were not fully considered, according to the inquiry's lead lawyer.
Very little thought was given to how, if it proved to be necessary, something as complex and difficult and damaging as a national lockdown could be put in place at all.
Public inquiries are notoriously long and expensive. The Grenfell inquiry, for example, has so far cost £170 million and hasn't even delivered its final report.
The COVID inquiry is aiming for 2027 for its final report. The first witness starts giving evidence tomorrow. Rags Martel, ITV News.
Next, the starting gun was fired over the weekend in the race to become the Conservative candidate and take on Sadiq Khan in the next year's mayoral elections. The The current mayor expressed his surprise that the Minister for London and favourite to get the nomination, Paul Scully, hadn't made the shortlist. With the latest, here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
Sadiq Khan doesn't yet know who'll be his main rival in next year's election, but he does know who it won't be. 2 days ago, the Conservatives took the surprise decision to block Paul Scully, the Minister for London, from becoming the party's candidate.
I am surprised. I know Paul Scully, I've known him for years. He's a nice bloke. He's been Minister of London for some time. We get on well. We've worked together on a number of big issues, the pandemic, the recovery and so forth.
Mr Scully launched his bid to be Tory candidate less than 4 weeks ago.
Absolutely, I can win.
But when the party announced its shortlist of City Hall hopefuls on Sunday, Mr Scully failed to make the cut. Instead, London Assembly member Susan Hall, Daniel Korski, a former political advisor, and Muzammel Hussain, a criminal barrister, were named as the 3 finalists.
The only candidate who can beat Sadiq Khan is I. Only
Why?
I. Look, I am the real London dream. The boy from the village in Bangladesh is a King's Counsel now.
My unique selling point is that I'm a businessman, I'm an entrepreneur. I bristle with energy and new ideas, and I don't just want to work the politics as usual. I'm not a politician. I'm a businessman, and I can bring an outside perspective to politics, to City Hall, that is sorely needed.
We all want to do it, and I'm very, very grateful that I'm down to the last 3.
Are you surprised Paul Scully isn't on the shortlist?
It's such a shame. I'm very fond of Paul. He's an extremely nice person.
Sadiq Khan has successfully won elections as an MP and as a mayor. By contrast, 2 of the Tories hoping to challenge him are novices when it comes to fighting an election. Privately, some senior Tories are furious at the decision to exclude someone with Paul Scully's experience. They believe it has all but gifted Sadiq Khan a 3rd term.
The choice of the next election will be, me standing on my record council homes, record general affordable homes, record numbers of mentors, tackling...
Is the election in the bag?
No, listen, in a democracy you've got to make sure you earn every vote. It's for the Conservatives to explain why they've not allowed Scully to be on the shortlist.
The mayor must wait a little longer to find out who he'll face at the ballot box. The winner of the Tory beauty contest will be announced 5 weeks tomorrow. Simon Harris, ITV News, Westminster.
The man accused of killing a police officer inside Croydon custody suite told the jury he's sad the officer died. Sergeant Matt Ratner was shot almost 3 years ago in September 2020. The defendant, Louis de Zoys, was hit by a bullet and suffered brain damage as a result. And Sam Holder's been following the case for us. And his injuries, the defendant's injuries, have affected the way he's given evidence. Huh?
Yeah, that's right, Ronke. And really, the entire trial has been very carefully constructed to make sure that Louis de Zoys can understand what's happening, that he understands the allegations against him and that he is able to give evidence and be defended properly. He speaks using a kind of mixture of short spoken words and written words on a whiteboard. And when evidence is being discussed, like CCTV of him being arrested, the barristers for both sides have been instructed to use very simple, straightforward sentences, almost the opposite of what you normally hear in court when barristers use verbose, complex legal arguments. As you said, this is because Louis de Zoys suffered a brain injury when he was hit in the head with one of his homemade bullets. That was in the custody suite at Croydon Police Station after he shot a police officer.
And quite complicated to follow. What has de Zoys been saying in his evidence?
So what he can say, Ronke, is actually quite limited, what he's able to express. The facts of the case, to get them out, are that Louis de Zoys had an antique gun hidden somewhere on his body when he was arrested. Police officers failed to find it. He then fired that gun multiple times in a custody suite, killing Police Sergeant Matt Ratner. Louis de Zoys' lawyer asked him if he was guilty of murder. De Zoys initially said no, but later claimed that he didn't know what guilty meant. He also said he was sad that Sergeant Ratner had died. The defence's argument is that de Zoys suffered what they describe as an autistic meltdown, which forced him to fire the gun. OK,
Sam, for now, thank you. A barrister has been jailed after buying drugs from clients he was representing. 42-year-old Henry Hendon was first investigated after police examined the phone of one of his suppliers who had been arrested and found texts where Hendon had asked for drugs. He's been sentenced to 14 months in prison. Next, one school's campaign for more space to help more children. Acro Academy in Camberwell takes in pupils who've been expelled from other schools. The academy is proving a success at turning lives around, but they're also having to turn kids away as they don't have the space to take any more. As Kath Okpata reports, it's a campaign capturing Olympic-sized attention.
Full moon, first, third quarter.
Written off for their poor behaviour, but given a second chance at education.
What brought me to ARCO is my behaviour towards teachers and certain students in my school, and I'm finding it good because it's a small space and I'm not around a lot of people.
2, 1, let's go!
All 60 pupils at ARCO Academy were expelled and sent here from mainstream schools. The staff here are using alternative teaching methods such as sport to help pupils achieve their full academic potential, and their hard work has caught the attention of an Olympic gold medalist.
We all know the stats don't bode well for those that get excluded from schools. So I love sport, so any school that has a really strong sporting ethos is great.
We have a 100% pass rate of GCSEs to date. 100% of our students have gone on to further education or work.
It's an impressive resume, but even with these successes, there are still some difficulties. ARCO is constantly receiving new pupil referrals from local councils every week. Their problem is finding the space to have them.
The frustration here is that we've got 60 students and we've got 15 to 20 people applying every single week.
It may not look like it, but this is actually a classroom here at ARCO Academy, only capable of fitting around 6 or 8 people, and it just goes to show that the space simply isn't there to deal with the constant referrals of pupils from local councils. And while this already crammed class was in session, their principal received an email from Sadiq Council. What was it you wanted to tell me?
I've literally 3 referrals have just come in, one for a year 8, 9 and 10 student, and we just simply don't have the space, and this is what we're getting daily.
Every day you get emails like that?
Every day we get emails like this.
I mean, I was just in one of those classrooms that I don't think you can fit any more pupils in there.
Precisely.
Southern Council told us ARCO is responsible for managing their buildings and capacity. However, we are aware of their need for new premises, and we are always open to help and support where we can.
Let's go.
While they wait for that support, more pupils continue to be referred to ARCO, but with facilities already at capacity, they're all being turned away. Cafe Pato, ITV News.
Still to come on the programme, anger after 131 trees are chopped down illegally in Bromley, and how getting your hair cut could be a lifesaver. But first, how seriously are airlines taking the needs of their disabled passengers? Presenter Sophie Morgan would say not seriously enough after British Airways broke her wheelchair equipment for the second time this year. Here she is in a clip she loaded up to her Instagram account when she got off the plane and realised what had happened.
British Airways have broken my Batek. I arrived at the airport, it was working, now I am reunited with it off the back of the plane, it's not working. Again, there's some sort of electrical fault, it's not connecting when I turn the key in, and so what does that tell you? It's been manhandled. I honestly don't think I can actually handle much more of this.
Now, Sophie's with me now, and my heart goes out to you in that clip. What exactly happened?
So I travel as a wheelchair user, obviously. I've got an additional piece of equipment that goes with me, which is called a Batek, and that's what I'm referring to in the clip.
Right.
So a Batek is like a powered motor. It has a battery on it, and it clicks into my chair and makes it almost into a scooter. I go everywhere with it, and when I fly, typically it gets taken down into the hold. And on this occasion, when I got reunited with it after I'd just disembarked the plane, I put the key in and it didn't work. And when I arrived, when I boarded the plane, it was working. So it was broken somewhere in transit. I don't know how, I don't know what happened, but this comes on the back of, this isn't the first time this has happened. Earlier in the year, my wheelchair and the Batek got damaged. Again, on when I landed into Heathrow, and British Airways met me there, and they connected the two pieces of equipment together, and they'd done it incorrectly and broke them. So I'm at my wit's end.
I'm not surprised.
A little bit. And I'm just, but the problem is this isn't something that's just happening to me. This is happening to so many of us. And in the last, certainly 5 months, and certainly over this weekend since I posted, I've been inundated with messages.
I suppose we all see the way that suitcases are handled.
Yeah, you know.
So I'm guessing that that's the problem. It's the way that they're put into the hold and the sort of the way that they're handled.
I wish I knew. I wish I could tell you what was going wrong, because then we could fix it. The problem is it's out of, I can't see at this point. I've been loaded onto the aeroplane. I don't know what happens next, you know, and that's where clearly the processes that are in place aren't working, because, like I said, it's not just me that this is happening to. I've been inundated with messages from people, and it's not just wheelchair users, actually, who are struggling when they are trying to access air travel. Those are different types of people with different types of disabilities are just finding that air travel is just so discriminative and so ableist in its approach that so many of us are now feeling fearful to fly. And so the campaign I started back in February when this first started, called Rights on Flights, was really the purpose of it was to raise awareness and to try and empower disabled people, you know your rights when you fly. But I feel really discouraged today. I just feel really like...
But British Airways, you have had a meeting with them. I mean, I know they've apologised. They have apologised. We should make that clear.
Yeah.
And you've had a meeting with them. I mean, what's their response been?
I'd say as expected, to be honest with you. Sorry, we'll do better. We're going to, we're going to do better. But if I could... The reason I feel discouraged, I just think if this is happening, and it's already happened to me once, and it's happened again, to someone that's already running a campaign, you know, that I'm raising awareness of this problem already, and then this happens again. I just think nobody's safe. And I want them to do more to instill more confidence in us, because if I get one more message from someone saying, I'm too scared to fly, or my child's disabled and I don't want to fly now because I'm too scared their equipment will get damaged, because really... If your wheelchair is broken, it's you
taking
can't
away
move.
Your mobility, isn't it? Sophie, it's a campaign that you're definitely going to continue with, and we will keep an eye on with you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you. OK, next tonight, people in Bromley have described the cutting down of 131 trees in a neighbouring field as a true tragedy. The trees in the well-loved field were under a protection order and were allegedly felled illegally. A man was arrested at the weekend. Bromley Council have called it environmental destruction, and campaigners say it has damaged the biodiversity in the area. Divya Kohli reports.
This is the destruction of a once thriving young woodland that had been appreciated by those who lived around it. These trees were cut down just a few days ago. When we arrived today, the once pretty green spot in Bromley looked even worse. Dead leaves now scorched by the sun.
You see the carnage around you. There's a lovely little oasis in South London here. I only live half a mile away. I come in with my dogs most days. There was a memorial bench in the corner we used to sit on, take a rest, and it was just a lovely spot.
The oak trees were thought to be around 20 years old and were all under a council tree preservation order. The woodland was home to a range of different wildlife.
You can't go round just cutting down trees without permission from the council. You know, each individual tree should have been climbed to check whether it had birds' nests. This was the worst time of year for this to happen.
The CPRE thinks 131 trees were cut down at the weekend, and there could be more. People who use this green space have described it as a devastating loss. They say a special part of their community has been destroyed.
A man was arrested and released on police bail. He told ITV News London he was granted a lease with a view to creating sports facilities for children of all ages. He says he's a law-abiding citizen and that if he'd known about the tree preservation order, he wouldn't have cut the trees down.
There's a possibility of up to a £20,000 fine in a magistrate's court or an unlimited fine in a Crown Court. So obviously that investigation is going on, and I can't say whether that will be reached or not at this point because it's still early stages. But it's certainly something that Bromley Council, which prides itself as a green borough, the greenest borough in London, are going to take really seriously.
It's still unclear why the oak trees were taken down, but it has saddened a community who say this is environmental destruction, damage that'll take decades to restore. Divya Kohli, ITV News.
Next, a plan to get black men talking about their health and getting themselves checked out when displaying cancer symptoms. A group of London barbers have formed the Barbershop project with a combination of music, posters and a simple conversation. The message is to fix yourselves while you wait to fix your hair. Antoine Allen explains.
How you been keeping? You keeping well?
The conversation that could stop more men from dying from cancer.
How have things been for you since the cancer diagnosis?
I give thanks, Everything has been okay.
Between trims, shape-ups and even a game of dominoes, barbers are cutting through the silence some men have about talking about their health, stopping them from seeking help for cancer symptoms and treatments.
I'm aware that there's a time bomb ticking inside of me now.
Black men are twice as likely to be diagnosed with prostate cancer when compared to white men. Sean noticed he had the symptoms of prostate cancer. He says going to the hospital for an early diagnosis saved his life. There could be men at home right now with similar symptoms to what you had, but still haven't gone to the hospital yet or to a doctor. What would you say to those men?
Go and get checked. I have got every respect for cancer. If given the opportunity, it's going to take you down.
Macmillan Cancer Support has teamed up with 10 London black barbershops to direct the free-flowing chats men have in their chairs towards a life-changing conversation.
A topic so taboo, a topic so under-discussed, it needed the spotlight. It needed the spotlight. And barbershops, barbering, being such a safe space, safe environment, it was like 2 + 2. You know, it makes sense.
Anderson, how does it make you feel knowing that a conversation in your chair could potentially save someone's life?
I don't think you can get much bigger. I don't think you can add more value than that.
Every 45 minutes a man dies from prostate cancer, someone that may not have reached out to their GP in time or spoken to friends and families. But by using the power of the barbershop, a place where people come to talk freely, they hope that that son, father, brother, uncle or friend can get the diagnosis they need in time to make sure that they can beat cancer. The organisers hope the Trim and Chat initiative will spread across the country, helping more men to seek cancer advice.
Spreading the information about where people can get support.
Charity Centrepoint, which says around 15,000 16 to 24-year-olds faced homelessness in the capital last year. Sally's in Greenwich this evening on what's been a difficult day for some Londoners. Sally?
That's right, Ronke. Look, first of all, let's just take a look at this beautiful view, one of London's greatest in Greenwich. You can see off to the left we've got the city, in the middle here we've got Greenwich and then Canary Wharf behind it, and over to the right, hiding behind the trees, you've got the Millennium Dome. And if you look towards Canary Wharf, you can see that there is a bit of a haze, there is some pollution, but not all of the pollution is visible. And we have had a high pollution alert today from the Mayor of London, and for tomorrow, the first one since January to say we've got high pollution, and the culprit is ozone. Now, you may have heard of the ozone layer. That's high up in the atmosphere. That protects us from the sun. But when we get ozone on the ground, that's when it can become dangerous. And it's the result of chemicals from combustion, from cars, fires, factories and so on, combining, reacting with sunlight. And that's when it becomes dangerous. Now, if you take a look at this graphic, you can see that at the moment we've got the perfect recipe. We've got loads of sunlight from these long sunny days. We've got lots of warmth that is increasing the rate of reactions and building up the pollutant. And we've also got stagnant air from high pressure that is stopping the pollutants escape. That's enough from me. Let's have a quick chat now with Simon Burkett from Clean Air in London. Simon, who needs to be worried about this? Who's vulnerable?
Well, ozone is one of the most irritant gases.
Right.
So the sort of symptoms that people might experience would be tightness of chest, difficulty breathing or coughing. The general population should be all right, but they should consider reducing activity if they feel those sort of symptoms. But for people who are vulnerable, so the people who are young, people who are older or who have, say, asthma or COPD, those people should consider reducing exertion at these sort of levels of ozone.
OK, Simon, is there any good news we can take from this? Is there anything we can do to improve the situation?
Well, I think this is about reducing combustion, so we really do want to encourage people to walk or cycle. Don't take that unnecessary car journey. Please don't light up a bonfire in the back garden at the moment. And in the end, if we reduce these pollutants, then we should have a cleaner, healthier, happier, quieter city. I think that's the prize for us all.
And very briefly, can we have barbecues?
Barbecues aren't as bad as bonfires, but I'd encourage people to have it perhaps on a different day when it's not quite so hot and a bit windier.
All right, Simon, thank you so much. It is a beautiful evening. Here's the forecast.
ITV London weekday weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles. Car, charger and energy.
Well, it's not just here where the weather is beautiful and the views are good. Take a look at this over West Reservoir. What a nice place to live. Now, over the next few days, things stay sunny, mostly dry, still warm, not quite as warm as the weekend, and thankfully a little less muggy. And we've also got very high UV and pollen. Now, as we take a look at the pressure chart, you can see we've still got high pressure over us, but moving towards the weekend, low pressure does start to move up from the southwest, bringing some slightly warmer air again, but moister air. So things will turn a little bit muggier. We could get some showers on Saturday. We'll keep you posted on that. As for tonight, well, what an evening. I mean, staying beautiful. We've got a lot of clear skies overnight. The temperature's dropping down, probably not quite as much as last night. It's a little bit more comfortable for sleeping, but the temperatures will still generally be in double figures in the towns and cities. And then tomorrow, another cracking start. Summer really giving us a few treats in terms of these sunny and blue sky mornings, maybe a little bit of cloud bubbling up into the afternoon, and again, the odd rogue shower, but plenty of dry weather. Still a little bit cooler on that east coast with that onshore. Temperatures similar to today, highs of 24 to 29. Let's take a look at the outlook, staying very pleasant, just a little bit more unsettled by Saturday. Here's the pollen.
ITV London weekday weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV Pollen Count.
Pollen, I'm afraid, is still a nightmare. We've got grass pollen and weed pollen from wildflowers and nettles. But from me, from us all here, and the beautiful view, even with the pollution, we'll see you later on. Cheerio.
And that's it from us. The ITV News is at 6:30 with Lucrezia Millarini. But for now, from all of us on the London team, enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.